Hi guys, it's Roy from Bellados 3D here with another Blender video, and this video will be a part one of a short series of videos where I create a school locker stroke gym locker type asset in Blender, paint it in Substance Painter and put it into Unity. So without any more delay, let's get started on the modelling. Okay, let's get started then. As you can see, I have a completely new default scene here. I've not added the extra lighting and textures that I normally add because I will not be texturing this in Blender. I'll be texturing this in Substance Painter. The only thing I've added is down in the bottom right hand corner of the 3D viewport is the screencast key, so you can see what I'm pressing. And to start with, I'm going to be sticking with the default cube today. And pretty much it's going to be cubes most of this video. So let's go into front orthographic view. First things first, because I'm going to be creating this as a game ready object for Unity, what I need to do is I need to make sure this little orange dot here, the origin point, is at the base of the model. And this helps when you're importing into Unity because the origin point is the point where the object will sit on the terrain or other objects in Unity. And it saves you from having to move things up and down quite so much. So what we'll do is we'll go into edit mode with tab and select everything with A, and then just press G to grab, press Z to restrict it to the Z axis, and press 1, and that moves it up to the red line. And now the origin point is in the exact place that we need. This also helps when you're scaling in object mode, because it will scale to that origin point there. So let's see, what sort of size do we need this box? I'm going to be making a set of school lockers or gym lockers, and they're usually 2 lockers high, probably about 2 meters tall, so 2 meters is about right for the Z-axis, and I'd say about 35 to 40 centimeters on the X and Y. So let's change that to 0.35 and 0.35, and I think that would be about the right size there. Now I've scaled this in object mode. As you can see, the scale there is not uniform. These aren't 1, 1, 1 anymore. Now this isn't generally a problem until you start using things like bevels and insets, and I'll show you what happens. If I go into edit mode now and I select a face and I try to inset it, as you can see, it doesn't inset uniformly, and that's because the scale is not uniform. So it's insetting to the scale and not just the dimensions. So what I need to do is, with the object selected, press Ctrl and A and just select scale. And now if I go back in and I inset, you can see it insets uniformly. Right, so in edit mode, we need to make the main shape of this. As it's going to be too high, I'm going to put an edge loop through the middle with Ctrl R. Gives me 2 equal sections, and I'm going to select, using face mode, the front 2 faces. Now I want to inset these and then bring them back to create the shell of the object, but obviously when you inset, it insets like that in one piece, both faces together. Now if I press I again a second time, you can see it now insets individual faces. So what I need to do is just bring it in just a touch to give it the border that I need. That should do it. I'm going to go into right orthographic mode with number 3 on the numpad, and I'm going to go into wireframe by pressing Shift and Z. And with them 2 faces still selected, I'm going to press E and Y to extrude and then restrict to the Y axis, and then I can move it back like so. Now if I press and hold the Shift button, I can move that a lot finer and slower. It gives you a bit more accuracy. So I'm going to bring it back to about the same as the whole of the rest of the border. About there should do it. Now if I press Shift Z to go back into solid view, that's the basic shape of the frame. and all I need to do with this now is give it a little bevel on the edges and smooth it off. So if I select all of it and then switch to edge mode, what I can do is I'm going to press Shift and Alt and select this edge here and this edge here, and that deselects those edges. I also want to deselect these edges here and at the bottom. So now all I've got is the outer edges selected. And then if I zoom in a little bit just so we can see where we are, I press Ctrl and B and I can bring that out. And now that gives me a single bevel. What I can do is scroll up on the mouse wheel just to give it an extra loop cut through the middle, and one should be enough for that. Now back into edit mode. As you can see, it's still flat shaded, so I can right click and shade smooth on that. And I also want to make sure that my normals, by going to the object data tab and down to normals, the auto smooth is on, and that helps to smooth out the normals for the model. And that pretty much that is finished, that frame. It's a very simple object, not a lot to it. And what I need to do now is I need to add some shelves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select in face mode this face and this face, and I'm going to press Shift and S and then select cursor selected, and that brings the 3D cursor into the middle there. Back in edit mode, I can then press Shift A, mesh and a cube, and as you see, the cube appears right on that 3D cursor. So let's shrink this down to size for a shelf. So in edit mode, scale all the way down. Now what I want to do is I want to get that in there, and I want it quite flush in there, but I don't want it perfectly flush because there's always gaps between pieces and things like this. So just about there should do the job. And S and Z to bring it down to about the width of a shelf, and I want it probably about half the width of this piece here. So about there should do it. And then what I also want to do is I want to select this bottom face, because these shelves, they're usually they've got a what do you call it? They're not one piece. They're usually they slot onto little hooks inside, and you'll see in a second if I press I now and scale it in. Oops, just a tad, and then E and Z, and to move it up like so. There's usually a little lip on the bottom of them like that. And now what I can do is I'm going to go back into edit mode, and because I want to work on just this piece, with it selected I can press the backslash on the numpad and it isolates the view to just that item. So let's go into edit mode. I'm going to select everything and then go into edge mode again with number 2 on the keypad. And what I want to do is I did it again, just shift click these pieces, oops, on the corners there, because I don't want them beveled. And that should be all of them. And then we Control and B and pull it out. There we go. And back into object mode, shade smooth, and apply the normals. Now we need to go back so we can see the whole model. So we press the backslash on the numpad again, and that's the whole model there again. And as you can see, that's a nice little shelf there. Now these are usually, I'd say usually about 2/3 for a larger piece and 1/3 for a smaller piece. So I'm just going to move that up to about, I'd say about there should do. And obviously I need that shelf in the middle of this, in this one, but I'm just going to create one for now, so I have less seam marking to do later on. And I'm going to create a door, and the easiest way to create this door would be to go back into the frame model, go into face mode with 3 and select this back face and Shift D to duplicate, GY, bring it forward, and I'm going to break that out of this mesh by pressing P and selection. And what that does is that makes that a separate object, just like that. Right, so we need the door. And what I want to do is go into edit mode, select everything, and EY to extrude it back, and we'll go like about that far. I should do it. GY, maybe a bit more. I'm going to bring this back again. But now I want to work on this piece, so I'm going to press the backslash on the numpad. And that isolates the object in view. Back into edit mode, select this back face. And again, you guessed it, I to inset and bring it in just a little bit. And EY and bring it back just a little bit like so. That just gives it a bit of definition on there. And again, as with everything else, select it all, deselect these flat pieces here, and Control B and bring the bevel up. And that should do it just about there. And then shade smooth and make sure the auto smooth's on. So that's our locker door shape. Let's bring back the rest of the model. And I just want to position that back so it's just overlapping like so. Right, so now we have the overall general shape for the locker and the door and a shelf. And we need to add some decoration to this door, some detail. So first things first, let's have a look. These lockers have vents in the front of them, so I'm going to create some vents. I'm going to do that quite easily. I'm going to create a cube, a Shift A and cube. Again, way too big. I'm just going to scale it right the way down. Oops. I'm going to bring it forward because I want it in front of that object. And if I go up to my snapping options up here and choose face, I can now press G and Y and then press Control over this face, and it snaps it to the back of that face, the back of that, the front of the door. And so now I can select this face here and delete that face with X and F, and I can now adjust this to the size that I want. So I'm going to press S to scale, X on the X-axis, and bring it in. So it's about covering about 2/3 of the door, about there. And then again S and Z to bring it in, so it will be about there. And it's sticking out way too much. I just need that to go back to about there. I'd say that would be enough. And what I want to do is I want to divide this into 3 pieces. There are going to be 3 little slats on this vent. So press Control R and scroll it up once. And that gives me 3 sections there. And then what I need to do is press Control and B and just bring it out slightly and scroll right down so that you've only got 2 loops there when you do that bevel. Okay, just like that. Because what I want to do now is I want to select this edge here and this edge here, and I want to press G and Y and bring them forward just slightly, and then select this edge here, this edge here, this edge here, and GY and bring it back just about there. I think that should do it. Yep, that should do it just about right, I think. So there we have our slats, and I think actually they're a little bit too big on the y-axis there. So on the z-axis, SZ, and on the x-axis a little bit like that. SC, and I think that's about right. I think that maybe they stick out a little bit too far, so go into edge mode on these edges and GY and bring them back. And I'm going to maybe bring them up a little bit just like that. And Yeah, maybe they need to go back a little bit more overall. So GY, and we bring them right the way back, so about there. And I think that looks good. So what I need to do now on that is I need to bevel the edges of that. It's shade smooth and auto smooth, and I think I need to bevel the edges of that. But no, now I'm not going to be able to. Well, I could do it manually, but there's a lot of things I need to uncheck for that. So I will go to the modifiers tab, add a modifier, and add a bevel. And we'll see if this works, and that's working quite nice actually. I'm going to change the limit method to angle so that it doesn't get any of the edges that are on flat surfaces. And I'm going to bring up the segments to 2, and I'm going to maybe give that a little bit of wider bevel. And I think that looks about right. I'm going to apply that for now. And as you can see, it's just beveled around the edges and not these flat pieces here. I think that's come out quite well. Right, back into front view, and G and Z, bring that back up. That's usually about there. I'm going to make a second one, pressing Shift D to duplicate, and then G and Z, and move it down to about an equal place about there. So we now have the vents on our locker. And now what else do we need? Well, these usually have a little holder for a label up here somewhere, so I'm going to do the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the door model. I'm going to select this front face, press Shift and cursor to selected, so it's at the front of the model, not in the middle there. Back out again, press Shift A and add a plane. And in edit mode, RX90 to rotate it on the X-axis 90 degrees. And let's scale that right the way down. And what we'll do is we'll bring it up to about there. Scale it right down. And I think that'll be about the right height. SX, bring it about across about there. And let's have a look at this. So what I want to do is I want to press E and Y and just bring that out just a touch, like so. And then inset it and bring it in just a touch, like so. And then E, Y and bring it back, like that, just like that. And again, we need to bevel this. So we need to select in edge mode, all of these outside edges, here and here and here, and then the edge pieces just about here. And I think that's got them all. That one as well. That one and that one. And then press Control B, bring it down, and scroll it up one, just like that. And again, shade smooth and apply your auto smooth, and it gives it a nice smooth look to it. Well, we need a way for them to get into it, don't we? So we'll need a handle of some sort. So in front orthographic view, let's take a look. I'm going to put the cursor here again. So I'm going to select the door, press Shift S and cursor selected. And let's put that round down at the bottom, so which I don't need. I'm going to select this piece, Shift S, cursor to selected. That's better. And I need, again, another cube. I think Shift A, cube. Again, way too big. I told you there was going to be a lot of cubes in this. I'm going to scale it right down. I need to bring it 4GY. Scale it right down, and let's take a look. How big is this handle going to be? I'm going to move it probably to about there. And scale it right down. Now we can press the period key on the numpad to focus right into that object, and you can now orbit around it. Makes it a lot easier. And just scroll back out a little bit. And down. And S and Z on the Z axis. I'd say that would be about the right size. Just need to thin it a little bit. S and Y. Just bring it in a little bit thinner, like so. And I'm going to add 2 loops with Control R in the middle there. And I'm going to press S and X, and just to bring that in, it just gives it a little bit more of a defined shape for the handle there. And we need to, again, bevel this off. So we'll select all of the outside edges, like so. And Control B, just a touch about there should do it. And we need to shave that smooth and apply Auto Smooth. And there we have the main part of the handle. And for the rest of the handle, for the to attach it to the door, I'm going to select this piece here and this piece here. I'm going to Shift and D to duplicate, and then I'm going to go up to my pivot point options and select individual origins, and then we can scale, and as you can see it scales down along its own origin instead of globally. There we go. And E to extrude on the y-axis to bring that out. And I think that's about right. I think I'm not going to bother beveling these because they're going to be hidden behind geometry. They're not going to be seen that well. So I'm just going to press X and F to delete the faces on that. And then select everything with my snapping still set to face, GY, and Control over that face, and it brings it right in there. And it's actually brought it back a bit too far, so it does that every now and then. The snapping's not great in Blender. So we can bring that GY, bring that out a bit, and we'll just bring it back until it's just inside. It's not, yeah, that's it. Okay, and there's our handle. That's maybe a little bit too big actually, I think. So let's select these pieces and S excluding the Y. Bring them down. And then from the side, I'm going to go into X-ray mode with Alt Z. I'm just going to select these end pieces and just make sure that's, yep. And G and Y and bring that back to about there. Let's come out of X-ray mode again with Alt Z. And that looks much better. And I think what we need now, we're going to need a little latch for the padlock to go through and a couple of hinges. So again, let's create another plane. Shift A and plane, and in edit mode RX90 and bring it forward GY from the front view, and we need this as a tall rectangle, so Shift X SX and bring that down, and then scale it all the way down, and we'll move that just into position. That's going to be right on the edge there. X and bring that down, G, Z, X, right on the edge, about there I think. And again, we'll bring this back to this face here. Now I've just realised the reason that the snap to face wasn't working very well is because we had it on individual origins up in the pivot point. So let's switch that back to medium point. And now if I go GY and press the control button, it snaps directly to the face there. Okay, so we need to bring this out a little bit. So E and Y and bring that out to about there. And then I'm going to give it a little lip around the edge. So I and bring it in just to about there. E and bring it back just a little bit. And then we need to make a little hole in the center of this. So I'm going to inset again. That's going to be a little hole there. So E and Y to bring it back, but we don't want it to go over the back of that, so just about there should do. And then we have our little latch piece. So let's do some beveling. With this one, I'm going to shade smooth, auto smooth. I'm going to do some beveling with the bevel modifier, like so. And it doesn't want to be too heavy. I'm going to bring it up one. I'm going to limit the angle, like so. And I think that looks about right there. Excellent. And maybe that's a little bit too big actually, so I'm going to go into edit mode again. I'm going to scale that right down, scale excluding the y-axis, and bring that down like so, and GX. Because I want to check by going to wireframe, yeah, I need it GX to be there, so that it's not over that line. Right, and we're back again. Right, so that's that piece. Now let's take a look. I'm going to need some hinges. Always need some hinges, otherwise it's not going to open, is it? So again, what I need is, I'm going to go into the door and press tab. I'm going to go into edge mode. I'm going to select this edge here because I want the hinges on this corner here, so they're showing outside. I'm going to press Shift and S, cursor to selected, and I'm going to press in object mode Shift A, cylinder. Now we don't need that much, many vertices, and for a little thing like a hinge like this, we can bring that right the way down to, I'd say, 10 vertices, and that should, if I right click that, shade smooth, and then turn on the auto smooth, and bring that up to about 50. That should give us a nice, yeah, that looks about right. And then in edit mode, we'll scale that right the way down. As I say, a tiny little piece like this, yes, it does look all jagged around the edges there like that, but a tiny little piece like this that's not going to be seen that much, it doesn't really matter on. So S and Z, bring that up, and I think that should be about right. I'm going to need 3 of them, but before I create 3 of them, I need to do some work on this. First things first, around the top and the bottom, I want to Control B and add a bevel, just to round it off. And I also want to put 2 loops in there, like so. Control B those loops, and then if I press Control and minus, sorry, that shouldn't have happened. So Control and minus, that will bring that down so there's only one selected. And again, S and press Shift Z to exclude the Z axis, we'll bring that in to there, like so. And there we have a hinge. So we need 3 of these, I think, on each door. So let's select all of it, and Shift and D to duplicate, right click to snap it back in position, and GZ, we'll bring that up to about there. And again on here, Shift D and GZ to bring it down to about there. And there we have our locker door. I'm going to press Shift C to center the cursor, and we can take a proper look at that. And that's pretty much it. All we have to do is duplicate all of this down the bottom, but I won't do that yet because what I need to do is I need to unwrap it. So let's do that now. Okay, so we're going to select the main body of the item, and I'm going to isolate that with the backslash on the numpad and go into UV editing tab. So again, that hasn't isolated that in this view, so I need to do that now. There we go. Right, and this is going to be a fairly simple unwrap, I think. Let's take a look what we need. I'm going to unwrap the inside separately to the outside, I think. So if I go into edge mode, let's have a look and select all of these. There we go. The middle edge of these. And what you want to do is go all the way around this edge here. And the same at the bottom. And all the way around. There we go. Control E and mark seam. And that breaks out the piece in the middle from the piece on the outside. So what I need to do on this here is choose this seam just here, and let's there we go. Central seam in there. Alt click the seam and shift alt click the seam on there. Press Control E and mark seam. I'm going to just select that and zoom in on that so I can focus. Back to edge mode and alt click this edge mode. Alt click that seam and alt click that seam. Control E and mark seam. So now on that bottom piece, if I go into face mode and press L over that bottom piece, it's a separate piece. I can press U and unwrap. And if I go down to the unwrap properties there, I can change that to conformal. And that gives me a nice little unwrap there. So I'm just going to hide that so it's out of the way. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the top piece. So I need to select that piece. And that piece. Mark seam. And we select this piece, this edge. And we're alt clicking the edges here so we can get the little pieces in the bevel in the corner. Like so. Control E and mark seam. So now back to face mode, L to select that, U and unwrap, and that gives us a nice perfect little unwrap there. So I'll hide that. And now what we need to do, I think I'm going to do the front piece and the back piece separate to the side pieces. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, in edge mode, select this line edge here, this ledge here, edge. And with Substance Painter, it doesn't actually matter that much about seams being visible because it uses triplanar projection for textures. So let's Control E and mark seam on that. So we've now got U and unwrap. Nice little unwrap on that. And the inside there is done. So let's select this piece here and this piece here and go all the way down to the bottom, and this edge along here, using Alt and Alt Shift. And this piece along here. Control E and mark seam. Select all of it, U, and unwrap. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to unhide everything with Alt H. Come out of edit mode and bring everything back. Because now I want to hide that piece. And what I'm going to do with the door here, I'm going to select all of these pieces of the door. And I'm going to press Control J and join them together. Now I need to adjust the smoothing on this, so shade smooth and go down to normals, and this needs to come up to about 40, I'd say, and that should smooth them off nicely. So we now have one piece for the door, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide. I'm going to select the shelf and isolate, so I can now do this. And again, I'm going to do the inside piece separate to the outside piece. So let's alt click on that edge there, zoom in. This is going to be a bit tricky to do. I'm going to go into vertex mode and I'm going to join these two pieces here by shift clicking them and pressing J. So I now have a seam going all the way through like so. I'm also going to select this edge here all the way around and select this edge here. And again, I'm going to need to join those two in a second. So I'm going to press Control E and mark seam, go into vertex mode and join those two like so, and Control E, mark seam. So we now have a seam all the way around, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the other corners as well. So I will speed this a little bit up. Okay, that's all marked now, all around the edges. And let's select that and press U and unwrap and see how that's come out. And there we go, nice little UV map on there. So I'm going to unisolate, I'm going to hide the shelf. I need to now unwrap the door. And we're going to use exactly the same method on this. I'm going to do each of the little pieces first to get them out of the way. I'm going to select on this one all the way around there. And I'm going to fast forward this because you've seen me unwrapping. It's the same all the way. There's no difference at all. And on this piece here, I think I'm going to use a different method of unwrapping. I'm going to press L to select this object. I'm going to press U to unwrap and Smart UV Project. Just up the island margin just a touch and press OK. And that gives me a nice unwrapped piece there. And I think for the hinges, what I've done is I've deleted the two other hinges so I can unwrap this one first. Makes it a little bit easier. So let's take a look at this hinge. I'm going to Alt select this edge here along the top and this edge here. Mark the seams there. And I'm going to go into wireframe so I can see inside. I'm going to select this back edge here, Control E, mark seam. And if I come out of wireframe, I can then select the whole thing and U unwrap, and that will give me a a nice little unwrap like so. So now what I can do is I can press Shift D, duplicate, GZ, and bring them back up into the position. Shift D, GZ, and bring them back there. So what's left to unwrap on here now? Well, we've got the door itself. So let's hide these hinges and this latch. Hide those. And again, with these pieces, I'm not gonna mess around with trying to mark seams too much on them. Smart UV unwrap usually does a good job, but I am going to make sure I do separate this face here, because I need that separate, because that's going to be a separate colour to everything else. So U and unwrap, and then let's hide that. So now we select these three pieces, and let's see what Smart UV project will do with that. So let's select Smart UV project and OK. And I think that should be pretty much fine for using in Substance Painter. Yeah, that should be fine for Substance Painter. Let's hide those and let's work on this main part of the door. So what I need to do is I need to separate it into two pieces, I think. Let's go into Edge Mode and we'll select around there. There. Oops. And this is the same as what we did with the shelves, so I'm going to fast forward this. Okay, and we're back. As you can see, I've put a seam all around the lip there and around each of the edges. Let's see how that's turned out. So select everything, press U and unwrap, and it's a nice little unwrap like so. So let's come out of object mode and press Alt H to unhide everything. I want to select everything and then shift click the frame again so that it's highlighted in yellow. Go into edit mode and select everything, and of course we've got some objects hidden, so press Alt H to unhide that, and of course it's a bit of a jumbled mess over there. Now everything is actually nicely unwrapped, it's just all on top of each other. So what I need to do is in this window here press A and to select everything and go to UV and pack islands. And what that does is that does a nice little job of packing the islands all together so that it's all nice and neat with a bit of a gap in between. And while not perfect, I think that will do for the sake of this video tutorial. Substance Painter is very forgiving with the UVs, so I think as long as everything looks nice and neat, isn't overlapping, isn't stretched, I think we can get away with this one. And yes, I think. Now what is this piece here? Let's take a look. Now if we press this button here, it synchronizes the selection with the box there. So even with everything unselected, the UVs are there, and if I select a UV, it will select these. So that's actually, I see, that's actually the hinge, and what that is because of the ridges around it, it's warping the UV. But to be quite honest, it's a small object. It's only going to have a metal material on it, so there's not going to be a high amount of detail in it, probably a lot of rust on the top of it, so it's not going to really make much of a difference to the actual model. So I think, yes, I think that's pretty good. That looks like job done. So let's go back to modeling. One thing I have noticed is I've noticed that the UV for this hinge, which is a tiny little object there, is the same size as the inside of one of the lockers, and this is because we haven't averaged the island scale. So what we did was we individually unwrapped each item, and that unwraps to the whole size of the UV box. Now when we packed them, it shrunk them, but it shrunk them at the scale they were at. So what we need to do is we need to select everything and then go to UV and select average island scale, and that shrinks all the individual islands down to the right size, and then we can go back in and pack islands. And as you can see, it takes up a lot less space. Let's see if we can make some adjustments on here, and now that's going to be take a lot of space up. We can actually manually adjust this, so I'm going to go control space and bring that in like so. And a lot of these smaller ones we can actually move inside the larger ones, so let's have a look, see what we can do. And to do this, we're going to have to turn off this setting here, the UV sync selection, otherwise attached objects will start moving with them. So let's GX, bring that in closer. And back into object mode, because what I want to do is, first things first, I want to take this door piece here and I want to set the origin point on this center hinge, right on the center hinge. And the reason for that is when I take it into Unity later on, these will be separate objects within the same model, and you'll be able to open and close that door in Unity. So let's go into edit mode, and I'm going to select this whole loop here, press Shift and S, cursor to selected, and oops, I've accidentally got that one selected, so let's select just that one, Shift and S, cursor to selected, come back out into object mode, and if I right click, go to set origin, origin to 3D cursor, and now that door, if I rotate it on the Z-axis, RZ will open and close on that pivot point. And I know I said you need your pivot points on the bottom of the model for Unity for placing it, but as long as the parent object, which will be the frame, has an origin point at the bottom, then the origin point can be anywhere on the other objects within the model, because it brings them in relation to that whatever is the active element when you export it. So for example, you notice here two different oranges here, the dark oranges and the light orange, and the light orange means that that is the last one selected, that is the active object. Right, okay, so now I want to go into front orthographic. I want to duplicate that door again, GZ, and bring it down, and we need to bring it, oops, don't know what happened there, I press Control instead of Shift, and we want to bring it in, and I actually think I got that perfect straight off. That's not too bad at all. And last things last, let's hide these doors, because I want to select the shelf and select the frame and press Ctrl J to join them. And then back inside here, I'm going to select the shelf and I'm going to Shift D, because I'm going to move that down, and I would say about the same amount. About there. Do it. Just like that. And there we have our finished locker ready for painting in Substance Painter, which I will be doing in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, share it with your friends. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever something new is uploaded by myself. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.